Hey guys, so I am back with another one. This one is going a little bit more in depth on the actual takeoff softwares that I use. The reasoning behind this is that one time I was joking with a recruiter, right, that I'm pretty much a software engineer. And the reasoning behind that is going to be some of the things that I tell you software related and how much we actually use if you want to get into estimating. So one of the first things that you're going to use whenever you get into estimating is going to just be a hand takeoff using markers to mark the amount of materials that you need for each section and what you're trying to quantify. And the reason why you get started there is just to kind of get into the simple and basic principles of this is so much of a square footage using the ratio that is going to be on the plans to tell you how much does this small picture equal in real life, basically. Getting accounts, basically, and that used to be one of the hardest things for me, is getting accurate counts and keeping accurate counts over time was hard to do, just keeping it in your head. So one of the first ones I started using would be Plan Swift whenever I first got it started. And it's pretty simple. It has counts, it has measurements. I think you can even add a pricing onto it so that it'll price things out for you versus you having to put all of that stuff into Excel and then price it out from that point. Very good, very easy to get into, one that I used for over a year. The next one is Bluebeam, and I've been using that the most over these past 5 years that I've been estimating in the civilian world. It is super simple. You can name things the way that you need them to be named for whatever you're taking off. So let's say we're taking off drywall and we want to get a lineal footage account for that. We take a lineal foot measure, scale it to the page and according to whatever the scale is on the page, and then go ahead and go around the outline for that specific thing that you're taking off. You can do the same thing for counts that you want to count for, let's say, how many light fixtures there are, how many different windows there are in the building, how many different doors there are in the building. And one of the quick things I'm going to tell you just off the get-go is if you want to scale and you aren't necessarily sure that the scale is perfect, use a door. Normally a door is about 3 feet wide, and you can use that to scale your drawing. The next is going to be on-screen takeoff. On-screen takeoff is pretty much the same as Plan Swift, and Plan Swift is pretty much the same as Bluebeam. I'd say on-screen takeoff is a little bit more antiquated in comparison to a Bluebeam, and what I mean by that is just the user interface seems pretty old. The reaction times seem to be kind of old to some of the stuff that you do, where Bluebeam is snappy. But that's just my experience from using on-screen takeoff, and I don't have a lot of experience in on-screen takeoff. I'd much rather use a Bluebeam. The next one, I'll go ahead and go with Fast Pipe. So it's really a fast suite of tools that they offer. One is called Fast Wrap, one is called Fast Duct, and the other is called Fast Pipe. I've used Fast Duct and Fast Pipe. Duct is for HVAC, so measuring duct, whether it's round duct or which would be spiral or rectangular duct, that goes for different square footages or different lengths, basically. They have different sizes as you go along the duct and different connections, and but you're able to do all of those takeoffs basically in Fast Duct. And in Fast Pipe, the same thing for plumbing, and that'll be a bunch of linear footage lengths as well as the connections for the pipe. So whether it's a T run or an L, and a rounded elbow, basically. There's a few other different fittings and different things that you can do with Fast Pipe, but the same thing, an estimating software for construction. So HCSS Heavy Bid, and they are more, this program that I'm talking about is more for excavation as well as concrete work, doing dirt work basically. And so I don't have a lot of experience with this one, but it's used a lot in concrete, basically getting volumetric measurements, setting up schedules for when things are going to be laid down, because you have to make sure you take into account how long the concrete is going to take to cure and how you're going to actually get the pads down in the most efficient amount of time, accounting for rebar and other things that are going to be present in the concrete. The next is going to be Stack, and this is going to be a program very similar to Bluebeam, but they focus a lot on AI in the system, helping AI do a lot of the work for you. And I like the program. I still haven't fully switched over to it from Bluebeam, but it's definitely paving the way to where things will be going to where the AI does most of the work and you're just kind of directing it, almost like a project manager would do with subcontractors. So one of the last ones will be Procore. And I heard of people using Procore to do takeoffs. I haven't actually used Procore myself to do a takeoff before. Most of what I've used Procore in the past, and why I've mentioned it on this list, because I've actually used it, is to get ITBs through from other companies, so invitations to bid, and then also submitting bids has been a lot of what I did with Procore. I've treated Procore the same way that a lot of you guys treat Building Connected, to where you can get ITBs and you can also bid the project on that same board. But apparently Procore has a takeoff function with it. So the next section I'm going to get into is drafting. So a lot of you guys, whenever you start applying to estimating jobs or estimating / project management jobs, you'll see a need for CAD and AutoCAD. And that I put in more of the drafting section, just because a lot of the drafters that I've seen do that. And what drafting is not necessarily doing a takeoff on plans, but actually creating plans or design build. Someone gives you an idea and then you build it in CAD, and then that person can give that CAD over to an estimator who will then estimate it for material amounts. And that's where you get your number from, so that you know how much it's going to cost to do this construction project, which is the whole point of an estimator. CRMs, so these are where you track your bids at, and one of those will be Salesforce, which I've used a lot. I've actually used Salesforce to, I think at one time, almost as an Excel after doing a takeoff and then putting that into Salesforce. I've used it a lot in a few different companies. Mostly though, it's used to just track bids over time, track bids, track customers that you've had in the past, and keep their numbers all on the line. Make sure that you have the projects corresponding to who your client is for each project, who's going to be paying for that project at the end of the day, and who all the problems and questions will be kind of given to. So contacts as well. Sage I used. I'm more input things into Sage. I didn't actually handle it as much as I did for Salesforce. So it's, from my understanding, pretty much the same deal as Salesforce. But I think it's a lot more of an older product, kind of like how I was insinuating with on-screen takeoff. Kickserve is one of the newer ones that I've heard of, and it is the exact same thing as Salesforce. The only difference is it's newer. It's used, from my understanding, more in like the mitigation field, but we were also using it for construction work as well whenever I was using it, and it's worked, decent enough. I saw that there was a lot of a mobile component to it too, so you can upload a lot of things mobily. to where I'm pretty sure you could probably now do the same thing with Salesforce, but I wasn't using it on my phone back then. And one of the last ones for the CRMs list is just normal files. So whenever you go into the computer and you click on files and they have all of those files made for each specific job, a lot of the places that you're going to work at are you going to have that. I've even worked in a place that had physical files, but normally there will be some type of digital component, and that'll be just simple as clicking through, making sure that you keep the same name as how the company structures it. Each company is going to do something different. They'll let you know whenever you first get there how they want things structured in their files, and the same for all the other programs I'm talking about. And as far as pricing, so this one is going to include something, I might as well just start off with it, the vendors. So pricing through vendors can definitely get complicated because vendors will do certain things and specialize in certain things, which means that you have to know what each vendor specializes in. You have to know what all your company covers in scope, especially if you're a subcontractor, but even if you're a general contractor, a lot of them will sub certain things out and they'll have to let you know that versus self-perform, which is your own company doing all the work themselves. But you'll have to call and reach out to vendors a lot of the times. Not every company does it. Some have controllers that'll do this function for you. But once you do that, they'll look at the plans. Normally they already have the plans. You really just tell them the name of the job. They'll come back and give you a price, and then you'll add margin for your own company on top of that and kind of go from there, and then you'll buy all of those products. I saw that a lot in the HVAC field. Another means of pricing everything once you get all your material takeoffs completed and put into your Excel or whatever you're holding all of those material counts at is RS means. I used it for flooring, but I know that you can use it for a lot of different applications. Another one was Xactimate, which I've seen used as a CAD. I've also heard it used to be able to use it for estimating, like a Bluebeam would be, but also mostly from what I use it was for pricing. Pricing out certain items, pricing out labor as well. It has a lot of labor functions inside of it. And those are the pricing softwares I use. And if you can see how extensive this list is, this is why I was joking with the recruiter talking about how I am pretty much a software engineer, because that's all I do all day for the most part, other than whenever I'm fulfilling my project management functions, which would be on-site visits, taking pictures, keeping up for certain projects. But all right, guys, see you.